Question, do human beings have tails?
I'm not exactly sure the essence of the question.
Do human beings have tails? Do you have a tail?
You know, I have never met anyone with a tail. I'm not exactly sure the...
Exactly.
Here we go. Ben Gleib, ladies and gentlemen, a guy who probably couldn't pass high school biology but thinks he's going to revolutionize the abortion debate with his groundbreaking discovery that embryos have tails. This is what passes for intellectual discourse in our society now. A failed comedian who thinks he's stumbled onto some profound biological insight that's going to blow everyone's minds. You know what this is? This is the kind of argument you'd expect from someone who gets their scientific education from memes and thinks WebMD makes them a doctor. Gleib's standing there acting like he's the first person to notice that human embryos go through developmental stages. Congratulations, Ben, you've discovered what every 8th grader learns in basic biology class. Do you want a cookie? But here's what really gets me. This guy's whole argument is based on the stunning revelation that developing organisms look different at different stages. Yeah, no kidding, genius. You know what else? Caterpillars don't look like butterflies, but they're still the same species. Acorns don't look like oak trees, but they're still oaks. This is how development works, you absolute moron.
But fetuses have tails. Kind of proves that at that phase they are not a human being.
Kind of proves. Listen to that scientific precision. Kind of proves. That's the level of intellectual rigor we're dealing with here. Gleib's got about as much understanding of developmental biology as I have of quantum physics, but he's absolutely certain that the presence of a tail structure kind of proves his entire philosophical position. You know what this is? This is the biological equivalent of saying that because teenagers are moody and awkward, they're not really human beings yet. It's the same moronic logic. If something doesn't look exactly like the final product, it must be something else entirely. By Gleib's brilliant reasoning, every stage of human development that doesn't look like a fully formed adult isn't actually human. Here's what this intellectual giant doesn't understand, that the tail he's talking about isn't actually a tail. It's part of the developing spinal column that gets absorbed during normal development. It's like calling arm buds flippers, and then arguing that humans are temporarily fish. But why would Gleib bother learning actual embryology when he can just make up his own version that supports his predetermined conclusion? This is the kind of argument that sounds clever to people who don't know any better, but falls apart the moment you apply even basic scientific knowledge. Gleib's betting that his audience is as scientifically illiterate as he is, and sadly, he might be right.
They got tails. Humans don't have tails. We're not dinosaurs. Let me even show you a photo if I may, okay? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being?
Here comes the emotional manipulation. In your heart of hearts, like we're discussing feelings instead of biological facts. Gleib can't win the argument with science, so now he's trying to win it with theatrical appeals to emotion. This is classic manipulation. Make your opponent feel foolish for believing what the science actually says. Instead of actually engaging with the scientific and philosophical complexities of human development, Gleib wants to reduce everything to a visual test. Does this look human enough for you? It's like asking someone to identify a tree by showing them a seed and then mocking them when they say it's a tree. This is how these people operate. They take complex biological processes and try to reduce them to simple visual identification tests. As if the entire question of human life can be settled by whether something looks cute enough or familiar enough to pass Gleib's amateur hour biology quiz.
This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
So let me...
Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This is a human fetus. Look how similar they look, but quite different.
And there it is, the big reveal. Gleib's master plan was to show his opponent a dolphin fetus and trick them into saying it's human. This is what he thinks passes for a devastating argument. This is his Perry Mason moment. I've seen more intellectual sophistication in a shell game. You know what this proves? That Gleib is either completely dishonest or completely stupid. Maybe both. He's sitting there acting like he's exposed some massive logical inconsistency, when all he's done is demonstrate that he doesn't understand the difference between visual similarity and biological classification. Here's the thing that Gleib's tiny brain can't grasp. Early embryonic development follows similar patterns across many species because we share common evolutionary ancestry. The fact that mammalian embryos look similar in early stages doesn't mean they're the same species, it means they're following similar developmental programs. It's like saying that all blueprints for houses look similar in the early stages, so all houses are the same house. This is the kind of gotcha nonsense that impresses people who think they're smart but aren't actually educated. Gleib's probably been waiting his whole career to spring this dolphin fetus trap on someone, thinking he's going to blow their minds with his brilliant logic. Instead, he's just exposed himself as someone who doesn't understand basic biology.
Dolphin. You just confirmed that a dolphin, in life, do you confuse dolphins for human babies often?
So let me
you
ask
go to
you a question.
SeaWorld and you're like, someone's got human babies in that aquarium. Get the human babies out of the aquarium.
And now we get to the comedy portion of Ben Gleib's scientific presentation. Because nothing says serious intellectual discourse like dolphin jokes in the middle of an abortion debate. This is what happens when a failed comedian tries to do biology. You get the worst of both worlds. Gleib's so proud of his little SeaWorld joke that he can't help himself. He's got to milk it for all it's worth, because God knows he's not going to get any laughs from the actual logic of his argument. This is his version of intellectual victory, making jokes about people confusing human babies with dolphins. You know what this tells me about Gleib? He's not actually interested in having a serious conversation about human development or the ethics of abortion. He's just looking for sound bites and gotcha moments that he can use to make his opponents look stupid. It's all performance, all theater, with no actual substance behind it. This is the state of public discourse in America, folks. We've got comedians who think they're scientists, making jokes about serious moral and biological questions while acting like they're the smartest people in the room. Meanwhile, actual scientists and philosophers are trying to have nuanced discussions about consciousness, development, and ethics, but they get drowned out by clowns like Gleib who think a dolphin fetus is the key to settling the abortion debate. Let's break down what Gleib actually did here. He took a basic fact about embryonic development, that early-stage embryos have structures that get absorbed or modified during development, and tried to use it as a gotcha argument about the nature of human life. Then he doubled down on this scientific illiteracy by trying to trick his opponent with a dolphin fetus, as if visual similarity between species during early development proves anything about their essential nature. This is anti-intellectual nonsense of the highest order. Gleib is taking advantage of the fact that most people don't understand developmental biology to make arguments that would get him laughed out of any legitimate scientific discussion. He's essentially arguing that because a caterpillar doesn't look like a butterfly, it's not really a butterfly. It's biological category confusion presented as profound insight. But here's what's really infuriating about Gleib's performance. He's not just wrong about the science, he's poisoning the well for actual serious discussion about these issues. There are legitimate scientific, philosophical, and ethical questions about human development, consciousness, and moral status that deserve thoughtful consideration. Instead, we get this carnival barker routine that turns everything into a joke. Gleib represents everything that's wrong with how we discuss complex issues in this country. Instead of bringing actual expertise to the table, he brings gotcha games and cheap tricks. Instead of engaging with the real scientific and philosophical literature on these questions, he makes up his own amateur-hour biology and presents it as if it's revolutionary. The dolphin fetus stunt is particularly revealing because it shows that Gleib thinks his opponents are as scientifically illiterate as he is. He's betting that people don't understand basic concepts like evolutionary development, species classification, or the difference between visual similarity and biological identity. It's contempt for his audience disguised as cleverness. And let's talk about the comedy aspect, because Gleib's background as a comedian is no excuse for this intellectual train wreck. Good comedians can be incredibly insightful about complex issues. They can use humor to illuminate truth, not obscure it. Gleib's doing the opposite. He's using comedy as a shield to avoid actually engaging with the difficult questions. This is what happens when our public discourse gets taken over by people who care more about winning points than understanding truth. Gleib doesn't want to have a serious discussion about human development. He wants to score cheap victories with biological shell games and dolphin jokes. It's intellectual masturbation masquerading as serious argument. The most damning thing about Gleib's performance is that it reveals how little respect he has for the actual subject matter. These questions about human development, consciousness, and moral status are among the most important and difficult questions humans face. They deserve serious engagement from people who've actually studied the relevant science and philosophy. Instead, we get this clown show from someone who thinks a superficial understanding of embryology makes him qualified to settle thousand-year-old philosophical debates. Ben Gleib is exactly the kind of person who's destroying public discourse in America, confident, ignorant, and completely convinced that his ignorance is actually wisdom. He's the Dunning-Kruger effect in human form, and the fact that he has any platform at all to discuss these issues is an indictment of our entire media ecosystem.